Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was kidnapped by Anko, part 1, subscribe if you enjoy the video, let's start the story. Naruto, age 12, was sleeping soundly in his apartment. It was after the second part of the Chunin exams, and tomorrow he would start training for his match against Neji, so that he could avenge Hinata. The obvious blonde hadn't noticed that he had started developing a crush on the shy Hyuga. The young boy woke up when he sensed that someone was in his bed, but before he could react, a sweet-smelling cloth was pressed over his mouth and nose while his arms were being pinned to his sides. MMMPH. His yell was muffled by the hand that was pressing the rag over his face. Naruto soon felt his eyes drop as he slipped into the darkness. His captor smirked when she felt her victim go limp. Time to take her new toy home and start playing with it. When Naruto woke up, he noticed that he couldn't move and that his arms and legs were spread apart. The blonde also noticed that he was nude. Once his mind was cleared of the effect of the chloroform, he noticed that he was laying on a bed and that his hands and feet were tied to the bedposts. Someone had also put duct tape over his mouth, muffling his screams. Naruto started thrashing, but couldn't break free. When he started to calm down, he noticed that he was in a room without windows and a lamp hanging from the ceiling, so at least it wasn't completely dark. Suddenly, the door in front of him opened and a woman stepped into the room and it was someone he knew, Anko Mitarashi. She was dressed in a fishnet shirt and a pair of panties, nothing else. Her captive couldn't help but notice her breasts and perky nipples under the shirt. In response to the sight, his penis started standing up, earning him a smirk from his captor. He sure was big. Anko walked over to the bed, swaying her hips seductively. This would be a night that would change both their lives. She had found the blonde too cute and his blood delicious, and after seeing his match against Kiba, she knew that she had to have him. Naruto would be not only her first student but also her lover. In return for using him sexually, she would teach him everything she knew about being a ninja. Before kidnapping him, she had of course tried to find out as much as possible about him. The things she found out, not all acquired through legal means, showed that his life had been very similar to her own. He hadn't even received proper education like the other genins. Everyone had treated him as an outcast, much as they had done to her when she first arrived. Luckily, she had found a friend in the slightly older Kurina Yuhi. Naruto's only friends seemed to be his teammates, and they were forced to get to know him because they were in the same team. Anko had also managed to overhear that her newest friend had the nine-tailed fox sealed inside of him. Some more investigation hadn't revealed who his father was, but she could guess based on his looks, but his mother had turned out to be her idol Kushina Uzumaki, and not only did she have a very powerful chakra, but she had also had a bloodline called Shoten, a bloodline that combined earth and lightning chakra to crystallize things. The snake mistress already knew that she would have to teach Naruto the shadow clone's secret ability, but once he knew that they would be able to cut down his training, that would usually take years to just a few days. She had chosen a kid with more potential than that Uchiha kid could ever have, and she was going to enjoy every minute of his training. Even though she had recently found out that her old teacher's teammate Jiraiya was back in the village and had plans to train the boy himself, he would have to wait until after the exams. She saw Naruto first. She had now reached her prey and smiled seductively at him. They had even put on pink lipstick and mascara to look more sensual. Anko straddled the younger boy and leaned down so she could lick and blow into his ear while rubbing her breasts over his chest, causing Naruto to let out a small sound that was muffled by his gag. She stopped licking his ear and moved her head so she was face to face with the child. The young woman slowly traced her fingers over his cheek while keeping her seductive smile. Her other hand started to play with one of his nipples. MMMPH. She smiled at his gagged voice. It turned her on. Anko ripped the duct tape of Naruto's mouth, and just as he was about to scream, she pressed her lips against his, kissing him passionately. It was time for her to reveal why she had kidnapped him in the first place. Once she had removed her mouth from his, she hand-gagged him so that she could talk without interruptions. Anko couldn't help but feel excited about pressing her hand over the young blonde's mouth. "Okay kid, here's the deal. I studied up a little on you. You have a lot of potential, and I want the credit for helping you unlock it. That's why I'll be training you until the final part of the Chunin exams. In return for letting me do this, I will not only give you sexual experience and help you get girls, I will also reveal everything I know about your mother." Anko removed her hand from her captive's mouth and stood up at the side of the bed with an expression that clearly showed that she wanted an answer immediately. Naruto thought for a moment. This crazy girl wanted to train him so bad that she would give her body to him. Not only that, but she held a clue to his mother, or at least, that was what she claimed. "How do I know that I can trust you?" Anko thought for a moment. The young orphan didn't have any experience of people who wanted to teach him anything, at least not willingly. "How about this? I'll tell you everything I know about your mother now and you promise to take me up on my offer. I heard that you never go back on a promise. That sealed the deal. Okay, I accept your offer if you untie me. His request was accepted. 1 hour later they were sitting in Anko's kitchen. Anko had brought over a set of clothes for Naruto while she kidnapped him. She had also put on a short skirt, eating breakfast that she had prepared, while the new teacher revealed everything she had found out about Kushina Uzumaki, including why she had gone through all the troubles kidnapping him. The reason was excitement. Luckily, she had already contacted the Hokage and told him she was training the young blonde. Your mother, Kushina, originated from the hidden Whirlpool village and moved here when she was just a little girl. Shortly after, her village was destroyed because the other villages feared the Uzumaki clan's skills with sealing techniques. I come from a clan that was so skilled with seals that other villages feared them. Naruto asked in astonishment. Yes, seals can be very dangerous, especially in the hands of masters such as the Uzumaki clan. So you'll be teaching me about seals, then? I can teach you a few basics, but seals aren't my specialty. So, then, what are you going to teach me? You'll see, but let me first continue the story. Okay. Naruto was getting eager to hear more about his mother. Now where was I? Oh, yes. Kushina came to this village to become the village's next Jinchuriki. Yes, a person who has one of the legendary tailed beasts sealed inside of them, like the nine-tailed fox. Wait, are you saying that the nine-tailed fox was sealed inside my mother? Naruto's attention was bigger than ever. Yes. She took over after her predecessor, Mito Uzumaki, was growing too old. So all containers of the nine-tailed fox were from the Uzumaki clan. Yes, but you're the first male. Naruto pondered for a moment about what he had been told while Anko took care of the dishes. It was the least she could do after what she had done to him. Now then, she said, interrupting his thoughts, let's get started with your training. The two of them were soon standing outside a place that Naruto knew all too well. Why are we back at the Forest of Death, Anko-sensei? Anko smiled sweetly at her young student, a smile that both scared him and turned him on. Because here we can train without anyone seeing you. After all, you don't want anyone to get a peek at the fourth Hokage's legacy. Naruto nodded. It did make sense. Neither of them noticed a beautiful young blonde girl with blue eyes that had overheard them. The fourth Hokage's legacy is hidden in the Forest of Death, she thought. That may help Shikamaru in the last part of the exams. After all, if it was hidden in here without anyone finding it, it must be extremely valuable and well protected. One thing did however seem pretty strange to Ino Yamanaka as she followed the teacher and student back into the forest. How had the exam proctor found out about it and why hadn't she taken it herself? Either way, an idiot like Naruto didn't deserve something that important. The blonde couldn't understand what Hinata Hyuga saw in him when there were plenty of other guys who were far better, like Sasuke. But even though it wasn't going to be easy to lay her hands on whatever was hidden in the forest, it would surely be worth it. Ino just had no idea how much her life would change before she would come out of the forest again. Naruto and Anko soon reached a clearing with a river running through where they stopped. Anko-sensei, why are we stopping here? The male blonde asked, confused. His new teacher gave him a seductive smile before pecking him on the lips. Naruto had a feeling that was just the beginning. Why, this will be our base for the training, she said cheerfully, and we'll live on what we can find in the forest in order to toughen you up and don't worry about being alone. I'll stay here to motivate you. She said the last part while keeping her seductive smile, which means that every time you mastered something that I taught you, you'll get to have your way with me. Naruto turned bright red at this. But first, let's deal with the girl who's been stalking us ever since we entered the forest. This snapped her student out of his embarrassment as Anko disappeared in a twirl of leaves. Ino gasped. What she had witnessed was so disturbing that she didn't notice the purple-haired appearing behind her, and before the blonde could react she found herself on the forest floor, bound and gagged with duct tape. Ino struggled furiously, trying to break free, but to no avail. Didn't you know that curiosity killed the cat? Anko said with a wicked smile before picking up her new captive and carried her back to the clearing. It was time to teach this fangirl about the true Naruto, and she wouldn't mind a threesome with such a cute girl. Meanwhile, Naruto was still trying to figure out what was happening when his teacher came back carrying the bound and gagged Ino Yamanaka. Well then, she said, let's start making camp before planning for your training tomorrow. What about Ino? Won't her parents wonder where she is? His answer came in the shape of a shadow clone. No problem, I'll just send this clone to the Hokage and tell him that Ino wanted me to train her as well. Won't that eventually be found out? Naruto asked, worried. Not if we can make her know the truth. But that will make her hate me even more. That's why you'll have 1 month to make her realize what a wonderful guy you really are. Naruto sighed. This crazy girl had it all figured out so fast. Fine then. Anko smiled and put down the girl on the ground before sending the clone away with her message while helping her students setting up camp while Ino was struggling to break her bonds. She never wanted to know Naruto. In her eyes he was just a failure. Once camp had been set, Ino was tied to a tree. "Alright Blondie, here's the deal," Anko said as she bent down and looked her cute captive in the eyes. "Unless you will train with us, you'll be tied up and Naruto will get to sleep with you every night when he's not doing me. The only way for you to get out of it is not only to train with us, but to do better than Naruto. Now, do we have a deal?" Ino thought for a moment. This crazy woman would actually let Naruto rape her. She sighed and nodded. It was Naruto after all, how hard could it be to do better than him? Anko smirked. The stuck-up blonde had no idea what Naruto could do when trained properly. The next day training started. Ino had gotten out of sleeping with Naruto, but even though her gag had been removed, she had stayed tied up so that she wouldn't try to escape. This had forced someone to feed her, and that someone was Naruto. Luckily Anko had helped her with the toilet. Their first exercise was water walking. Ino had already learned that thanks to Asuma, but Naruto was struggling with it. The blonde girl couldn't help but laugh at how pathetic he looked trying over and over again, though she did blush a little when he took off everything but his boxers, but she was quickly put in place by a hard slap from his teacher. "There's most likely something wrong with your seal," Naruto-kun, Anko said, earning a confused look from her female student who now had a red handprint on her cheek. "Let me take a look at it." Naruto nodded and channeled his chakra to the seal. One look was all she needed to realize that someone had tampered with it, and the thing that didn't belong there, she had seen the real seal when she was studying up on him, and that was in addition to the seal, and it reeked of Orochimaru. Fortunately for Naruto, Anko could break it, restoring the seal back to its original form. Once the seal had been restored, Naruto had no problem walking on water, making Ino very surprised. It was time for some answers. "Hey, what kind of seal can make that kind of difference?" she asked. The other two looked at each other. The woman whispered something into Naruto's war and the blonde caused the blonde to blush before thinking for a minute, then he nodded. She could tell his training partner his secret. "Well Ino," the purple-haired said with a mischievous look, "I'll tell you if you promise to become Naruto-kun's girlfriend." Ino gasped, causing Anko to laugh. "Don't worry, I was joking, you'll only have to become his girlfriend if you tell someone else this without Naruto's permission." Now it was Ino's turn to ponder. Was the secret really that big? She looked over at the boy in question and noticed his sad look. Come to think about it, why was Naruto the way he was? He was always trying to show himself off to others, like he never had anyone to praise him. The blonde girl gasped. Even though she had been running after Sasuke, she had never seen anyone being even friendly to Naruto. All the grown-ups seemed to hate him, and she had a feeling it wasn't because of his pranks. Ino always had someone to help her grow, as both a person and a ninja, but she couldn't remember ever seeing anyone help Naruto with anything. What if he had to learn everything practically on his own? That would explain why he never seemed to get any better, because no one told him how to improve. She had always had her parents, but Naruto had always been an orphan who didn't even know who his parents were. He was forced to grow up without any friends or family, something she doubted that she would have been able to do. The young mind reader suddenly saw Naruto in a whole new light. He wasn't the spoiled prankster that everyone thought him to be, he was just a lonely child who wanted to be accepted. Suddenly, Sasuke Uchiha didn't seem so special any longer. Sure, he was an orphan, but at least he knew where he came from, and because of that he had always had people accept him. He was too spoiled to be boyfriend material. She would rather have Naruto as a boyfriend. Ino nodded. I'd rather die than tell anyone without Naruto-kun's permission. Both people were surprised. Ino wasn't just saying it, she actually meant it. Ino decided that it was now Naruto's turn to open his eyes and realized that he was too good for someone as shallow as Sakura Haruno. He didn't deserve having his heart broken. But first I want to know why you like Sakura so much when she not only has eyes just for Sasuke, but barely sees you as a friend, she said. The male blonde thought about what Ino just said and realized what she said was true. What did he find so good about the pink-haired girl? The answer was simple. Sure, she was pretty and smart, but she only saw Sasuke. In her eyes Naruto Uzumaki was just a failure. It was time to start looking for love elsewhere, like with Hinata. She seemed to like helping him, and she didn't seem to be a member of the Sasuke fan club. The aforementioned boy nodded to his teacher, who started to explain everything she had found out about the cute boy she had offered to train. Meanwhile, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, was sitting in his office doing paperwork while wondering how Anko would train Naruto. He didn't doubt that she would take it seriously, but she sometimes had a tendency of overdoing things. Then there was the fact that the Mizukage was coming because she wanted to see the last Uchiha in action against the son of the Kazekage. She even promised a peace treaty for the trouble, a request that a true Hokage could never deny, and the Mizukages, including the third, were never known for backstabbing allies. Suddenly Anko Mitarashi came running into the office. At first Saratobi thought it really was her, but then realized that she wouldn't leave her student, so it was most likely a shadow clone. The clone dropped a note on the desk before dispersing. The old man took a look at it and groaned. Now she was training Ino Yamanaka as well. What was she thinking? She even suggested invoking the Clan Restoration Act for Naruto. The third decided it would be better to inform Inoichi about his daughter's whereabouts before going back to work. Ino was surprised at what she was hearing. Naruto's life had been a lot more complicated than she had realized. How could he still trust people after everything he'd been through? His personality made him the most exciting guy she had ever met. The blonde boy wasn't just boyfriend material, he was husband material. The girl finally understood what Hinata saw in him, he was definitely worth getting to know. While Anko had been telling Naruto's secret, the aforementioned boy had gathered some food and had just returned with a few rabbits. While the meat was being cooked over the campfire, they talked about chakra and all that was related to it. She also talked about Naruto's bloodline that allowed him to crystallize things. A very dangerous ability that could settle the battle in seconds. After lunch was finished they started to learn Taijutsu, well Ino was anyway. Naruto was using shadow clones to learn nature transformation, and with his rate, he should be able to use his bloodline in just a week. As the days went on the three people were growing closer, and after the first week it was time for Naruto to finally have his way with his blonde training partner, but luckily he declined because he was still sorting out his thoughts about Hinata. Not that he didn't find Ino attractive. I'm sorry Ino, but for some reason it doesn't feel good doing this. Is it because it feels like you're cheating on Hinata? I don't know, I just can't help but feel worried about her. Then maybe you should send a shadow clone to check up on her. Naruto nodded. That was a good idea and hopefully it would help him get to know the shy girl a little better. After seeing her battle with Niji he realized that although she was a weird girl, she was pretty strong and brave and he would like to get to know her. For some reason she made him want to show off himself more than usual. Ino smiled as she watched the young boy ponder the situation. Perhaps you've got a crush on her. This made Naruto blush. Had he fallen for Hinata without noticing it? Sure she was pretty and nice, but… The blonde boy realized that the only way for him to be completely sure of his feelings for the raven-haired girl would be to talk to her. Especially since the idea of having her as a girlfriend didn't sound too bad. They talked for about an hour before going to sleep. Once Anko realized that there wouldn't be any childproof things happening in the tent she went back in and found her two students sleeping in their sleeping bags, though Ino was sleeping in Anko's. The older girl sighed and took out her extra sleeping bag before going to sleep herself. Tomorrow will be a long day. The next day Naruto sent a shadow clone to check up on Hinata before they tested Ino's natural affinity, which turned out to be Earth. Then they tested Naruto's just for fun, but discovered that Naruto had a third affinity other than Earth and Lightning, namely Wind. It makes sense that someone with a bloodline that combines two natures has those two as natural affinities. This confused Anko. His mother had only left the crystal style, which meant that his second bloodline had to come from his father, whoever he had been. What does it mean when you have three natural affinities? Ino asked. That means that Naruto has at least one other bloodline. The answer. Then what is it? The teenage boy asked curiously. I don't know, so we're just gonna have to find out. Anko was really excited about finding a new bloodline. They still had 1 week left before the finals, and so far she had managed to get Naruto farther than any of his previous teachers. That knowledge made her smile. This would show all those fools what this kid was capable of. By lunchtime Naruto's clone had arrived at the hospital where Hinata was, only to find out that she had just been signed out. As the clone went to the Hyuga compound, it suddenly found its head nestled between two soft things. The clone had been so focused on getting to Hinata that it hadn't looked where it was going and ran into the chest of a beautiful and sexy woman with red hair. May I ask you why you have your head between my breasts? The woman asked with a smile, but you could tell that she was dangerous. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going. The clone couldn't get away fast enough. The mysterious beauty watched him run away with a smile on her lips. How dare he defile the Mizukage? The man beside her said. Calm down Aoi, she said, don't forget that that boy is the last of his clan and therefore my future husband. If the Hokage allows you to invoke the Clan Restoration Act, a boy beside her said. That's why I will tempt the cute boy with my body and the Hokage with a permanent alliance. And you think that will work? Aoi asked. Of course. My spies have reported that Naruto grew up without love, and love is something I can offer him, especially after his battle with Zabuza. He's definitely a guy in my taste. Of course the Mizukage knew that the Hyuga heiress also had her eyes on the blonde, but she didn't mind. The Clan Restoration Act required at least 4 wives, and the younger girl was definitely worthy of becoming one of Naruto-kun's clan members. Of course Hinata had an advantage, she had known the blonde longer. Too bad she was so shy, but as a fellow clan member Mei would be more than happy to help her. Now she just had to find 2 more candidates. The shadow clone finally arrived at the Hyuga house. The only problem now was how to get in without being seen. The Hyugas didn't exactly like him. Luckily he was an expert at sneaking around, so getting to Hinata's room turned out to be easier than expected. The clone found the target of his trip lying on her bed looking at a framed photo of him, though it looked like the picture had been taken without him knowing it. "Oh, Naruto-kun," she said, "why can't I tell you how much I love and admire you?" The boy couldn't believe what he was hearing. Hinata Hyuga was in love with the most hated guy in the village. At least now he knew where all the unsigned Valentine's Day chocolate came from. The only problem now was what he would do now. Would he say hi to Hinata and try to start a conversation, or? The clone slapped his head. Of course he would say hi. The whole point of coming there was to get to learn more about the shy girl. He knocked on the window, startling the girl. Hinata couldn't believe that the boy of her dreams was standing outside her window. Had he heard everything she just said? She blushed so much that she almost fainted. Once she had calmed down she opened the window to let the boy in. They both sat down on the bed, but neither one knew what to say. Naruto had never dealt with a girl who was in love with him. He began to doubt his feelings for Sakura even more. She had never been as nice to him as Hinata. The girl had even tried to help him cheat during the first part of the Chunin exam. Naruto then decided to give up on Sakura and give Hinata a chance. The raven-haired girl deserved it. "So, what kind of things do you like?" the clone asked, hoping to start a conversation. They talked for about an hour and decided to go on a date after the exams. Before the clone dispersed it gave the girl a kiss on the cheek. That became too much for Hinata, who fainted. Once the real Naruto received the memories from the clone, it became clear that he wanted to become more at least friends with Hinata, which was why he would take her out for some ramen after the exams. But he also couldn't stop thinking about the red-haired that the clone had run into. He got the feeling that he hadn't seen her for the last time. The rest of the week passed by quickly and Ino found herself becoming Naruto's friend and she didn't even mind it. Not to mention that her feelings for Sasuke grew weaker every day. This made her wonder if her feelings for the last Uchiha was just a crush. The other blonde also found his feelings changing. Sakura wasn't the girl of his dreams any longer and Ino was becoming more of a friend than his female teammate had ever been. Anko smiled at the 2 blondes as they were nearing the exit of the forest. They had grown considerably this past month, and Naruto had even discovered that he had a second bloodline, Ice Release, which allowed him to combine wind and water to create ice. Too bad he didn't have time to learn how to use it. That was something she had to leave to Jiraiya. Anko just hoped that the old man wouldn't turn him into a pervert, though part of her thought that the idea of a perverted Naruto having his way with her didn't sound too bad. Unfortunately she preferred to be the one in control. The 3 suddenly found themselves outside the gate, with the finals being the next day. After Ino had given Naruto a peck on the cheek she ran towards her home to say hello to her parents. Meanwhile, he gave her student the key to her apartment and told him to go and get his things because they would be living together from now on, as long as he helped with the chores, which Naruto thought sounded reasonable, though he had a feeling the nights would be anything but safe. Afterwards Anko was on her way to the Hokage tower to give her report, and boy would the old man be surprised over the dead last's progress. The night before the finals the 3rd Hokage got an expected visitor, Anko Midarashi. After reading her report on the 2 blondes training, he couldn't believe what it said. If Naruto had such potential from the beginning, then the reason why he had done so badly in school had to be because the teachers had sabotaged it for him. Ino had also grown considerably. It even seemed, as she had started developing feelings for Naruto, even after hearing about the 9-tailed fox. Sorry that I forgot to add that in the last chapter. And to add to his headache, the Mizukage had approached him earlier that day and suggested a permanent alliance if the Kra was invoked in favor of Naruto Uzumaki and she got to be one of his wives. The old man sighed and looked at a small cylinder in his hand. It contained a red fluid. It was the Sharingan in concentrated form. Sarutobi had acquired it shortly after the Uchiha massacre in order to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. The result now laid in his hand. Because it was combined of all of the Uchiha Sharingan, it was probably the most powerful Sharingan that wasn't the Manjikyu Sharingan. The 3rd had wanted to give it to Naruto as a compensation for everything the village had put him through, and it seemed that the time was now. Problem was that with Orochimaru planning something and the finals being the next day it had to wait until after. He had the feeling that this would be his last battle, and he needed the Sharingan in safe hands until it was safe enough to inject it into Naruto, and the only place he could think of was with the Mizukage. She had been a childhood friend of Naruto's mother, and those two had trusted each other with their lives, which made her his godmother and the most reliable person to entrust with Naruto's gift. Mei had already been informed of the situation, and they both agreed that when the war began, she would have to take the cylinder back to the hidden mist and wait there until Naruto came to get it. He knew that he would have to inform Anko about it as well, but he could do that tomorrow. Right now he was very tired and he would need all his strength for the war. At least he had secured Naruto's future. Naruto had to admit that Anko's bed was both bigger and more comfortable than his old one, and he sure wasn't complaining about his new roommate. He knew she would like to rape him if she could, but he had an important day tomorrow and she had respected that. But that didn't mean that they couldn't cuddle a little. During dinner, the purple-haired girl had informed Naruto about the Clan Restoration Act, which both he and Sasuke were allowed to invoke since they were the last members of their clans. This also included that they both needed at least 4 wives. So part of their discussion was who he would choose. The blonde had already decided that Hinata was a good candidate and Anko was really good at seducing him. Ino was pretty sexy for a 12-year-old girl, but they were only friends, right? This left room for one more candidate. Luckily Anko had a volunteer. The Mizukage. Yes, a marriage with her would ensure an alliance with the Hidden Mist. I've also heard that she's quite a looker who just like you possesses 2 bloodlines. How old is this woman exactly? She's in her late 20s. The Hokage has also informed me that she's an old friend of your mother. She knew my mother? This got Naruto's attention. Yes, so she can tell you a lot about her. But we've never even met, why would she want me and not the last Uchiha? Oh, but you have met her. I have. The blonde was getting a bit confused as he caressed Anko's breasts, causing her to moan. Yeah, according to her you ran into her the other day. You even got to feel her breasts, something that no other man has been allowed to do. He was now kissing and licking the younger boy's body as he tried to remember who the Mizukage could be. Then it hit him. The red-haired beauty that his clone had crashed into. His teacher lover had been right, she was quite the looker. Though she did scare him a little. The two of them went to sleep, looking forward to the match tomorrow. Ino Yamanaka had some trouble sleeping. This past month has been such an eye-opener. Naruto Uzumaki, the most hated guy in the village, had turned out to be one of the most fantastic and lovable guys she had ever met. She even preferred him in front of Sasuke, and she suddenly found herself hoping that he would one day court her instead of the Uchiha. This revelation shocked Ino. After spending so much time with the blonde idiot, she had fallen for him, though she doubted that her feelings were as strong as Hinata's. Speaking of Hinata, the blonde girl wondered how the Hyuga heiress was doing, especially after Naruto's clone had visited her. Was there a chance that the two girls would share him? Probably not. Ino was a girl that the raven-haired girl had a good reason not to share anything with, especially not Naruto Uzumaki. The girl sighed. Hinata was a nice girl, but when it came to Naruto she behaved so differently, there was even a chance that she would never forgive the Yamanaka for what she had done to the boy of her dreams. Ino knew that she would have to talk to Hinata tomorrow and settle this. They both sincerely liked the same guy, and unless they shared him then one of them might be heartbroken, and she didn't want that. The young girl fell asleep, preparing herself for the upcoming day. The next day Ino managed to catch up to Hinata as she was heading towards the stadium to watch the finals. Hey Hinata, wait up. The aforementioned girl turned around and looked at the blonde as she caught up with her at the training ground. Can I help you with something, Ino-san? The bustier girl asked her, trying to hide her dislike of the young girl who had always treated Naruto as bad as everyone else. Listen, I have something I have to tell you about Naruto. She panted. This caught Hinata's attention. What about him? She asked. Once Ino had calmed down she told Hinata about how she and Naruto had trained together for a whole month, and it wasn't until she had gotten home that she realized that she had fallen for him. The raven-haired girl just looked at her surprised before slapping the blonde as hard as she could, causing the unsuspecting girl to fall to the ground. Ino rubbed her stinging cheek as she looked up at a furious Hinata. How dare you say that? You actually expect me to believe you after all you have done to him over the years? You're probably just saying that so you can psyche him before his match so that he'll lose. Hinata stomped away furiously but was stopped by Ino. Listen, I know you think that I'm lying, but I am telling the truth. What do I have to do to prove it? Hinata thought for a moment. If Ino was as serious as she said she was, then she would have to prove it by doing something really embarrassing, but what? The solution she came up with made the raven-haired beauty blush. If Naruto was in on it then it would be the perfect proof. Okay, here's the deal. She said while blushing, causing Ino to wonder what she had thought up. Hinata took a deep breath before telling her idea. If you let Naruto completely dominate and impregnate you without any hesitation from your side while being with me, also then I'll believe you. But remember, there's no going back." Both girls were blushing furiously by now. The blonde girl thought for a moment. Was Naruto really worth giving up so much for? The answer was easy. Yes. After having such a hard life while staying so great, he definitely deserved the best. Besides, a guy as nice, caring, and strong as Naruto would make a great father, even if he would father Hinata's children, as well. Ino Yamanaka nodded firmly, surprising the other girl with her determination. She would actually do anything to be with Naruto, even humiliate herself. Of course Hinata knew 100% that the boy would never be so cruel, especially to girls, but Ino couldn't have found it out in such a short time, could she? The Hyuga girl used her Byakugan to scan the Yamanaka and found that she really was telling the truth. Ino was surprised to see that Hinata was smiling gently at her. Had she actually been forgiven? "Alright, I'll forgive you if you help me get back at Sakura for hurting our Naruto-kun." The blonde girl noticed the "for" in that sentence, but nodded. She had wanted to punish her ex-best friend ever since she realized how unfairly the pink-haired girl had treated Naruto just because he paid her attention. As the two girls walked towards the stadium, they discussed how to punish Sakura after the exams, and they liked what they came up with. Hinata started to realize that, as long as Ino was in love with Naruto as much as she was, then they could be good friends. Naruto was feeling a little nervous as he was standing before Neji Hyuga, considered to be one of the strongest genin in the village. He looked around and found his girls among the audience. Mei Terumi was sitting with both the Hokage and Kazekage, while Hinata and Ino were sitting with Anko and Kurenai. The purple-haired was whispering something to her red-eyed friend. If Naruto knew his new teacher right, she was probably bragging about her success with his training. The only one the blonde couldn't see was Sasuke. If he didn't come soon, he would be disqualified. Naruto guessed that Kakashi had rubbed off on his teammate, and for some reason that sounded fair. The blonde knew that he shouldn't think like that, but he couldn't help it. They had preferred to train Sasuke even though he too had needed extra training. Luckily there was Anko Mitarashi who had been more than happy to train him, so things had evened out. It had given more than anyone had taught him before. Naruto then understood why Anko was so cocky. She had proven herself a better and more effective teacher than anyone else in the village. The purple-haired girl had earned the reputation of being the best in what she did, and that was always something to be proud of. The blonde turned his attention to his opponent, who was gonna pay for what he did to Hinata. The two smirked at each other. Neji, because he expected an easy victory, and Naruto, because he would wipe the floor with the cocky Hyuga. The match started, and Naruto used the multiply shadow clone technique to create 100 clones. He decided to start the fight by testing his opponent, a wise strategy, because he didn't know what to expect from his opponent besides the gentle fist. And the clones would allow him to collect information without risking anything. The audience, minus Anko, Ino, Sarutobi, and Sakura, was shocked that a genin, especially Naruto, knew such a dangerous and advanced technique. "That kid's unbelievable," Kurenai exclaimed, causing Sakura to look at her strangely and ask her what she meant. Anko answered in her friend's place. The multiply shadow clone technique basically requires so much chakra that even a Kage risks at least draining themselves of almost all of their chakra just by using that technique. If for example Kakashi were to use it, especially on such a large scale, as Naruto just did, he would surely die of exhaustion. Sakura blinked. Naruto had always used that technique easily, without getting tired. Even now he wasn't even breaking a seat. Did this mean that he had enough chakra to rival the nine-tailed fox? She had always thought of him as a loser, but now she wasn't so sure. While this had been going on, Naruto had attacked Neji with all of his clones at once, but they had been pushed back by Neji's 8 trigrams Palm's heavenly spin, destroying them all. The blonde was pretty impressed, even though he didn't show it. To destroy so many clones at once wasn't easy, but apparently the Hyuga clan had a way to make that possible. Besides, those clones didn't get wiped out in vain. They had gathered the information necessary for him to see through that technique. The key to it was rotation. No rotation, no ETFS. Luckily Naruto had just the technique to stop Neji's rotation, but first he would need some information. He wanted to know why the older boy hated his cousin so much. "Why did you hurt Hinata so much? What has she ever done to you?" Neji smirked at him. "Do you really want to know? Then let me tell you the story." He took off his headband, revealing the cursed mark of the Hyuga clan. Neji's story was really sad and made Naruto realize that maybe he and Neji weren't so different. He cast a glance at Hiashi, Hinata's father, who was sitting in the audience. The look on the man's face told him there was more to the story than Neji knew. "You have no idea how it is to be marked with something that can never be erased." Neji's comment pissed Naruto off. He knew more than the Hyuga suspected. I wouldn't bet your bloodline on it. The blonde said, lifting up his jacket. May decided to give him some better looking clothes in the engagement present if he would accept her, and putting chakra into his seal, making it visible. This seal was put on me the day I was born. Though it increases my powers, it forces me to grow up completely alone, hated by everyone in the village without ever knowing why. At least you know where you came from and have people to accept you. Neji couldn't believe what he was hearing. It was true that he knew about his background, but that didn't mean he liked it, but Naruto had had it even worse. He was unwanted by the whole village. No one had ever cared about him or praised him. At least he had had his father who taught him things, but Naruto had to learn everything on his own. The aforementioned blonde decided that now that he had gotten his point through, it was time to end this. It wasn't until recently that I found out about my mother, and this is the bloodline I inherited from her. Neji blinked as Naruto performed a few seals rapidly. Crystal release. Jade crystal prison technique. Before the other boy could react, he found himself trapped in a pink crystal, completely unable to move. This surprised the whole audience. The failure of the village had such a bloodline at his disposal. The proctor had no other choice than to declare Naruto the winner. The civilian council was in uproar. Such a powerful bloodline should belong to the Uchiha clan, but they were quickly silenced by a glare from the Mizukage and the Hokage. Sakura was dumbfounded. Since when did Naruto have a bloodline? Then again, no one seemed to know about his parents, so it made sense that he had an unknown bloodline. Hinata was also impressed. Naruto didn't attack for real until he had all the information he wanted, and then he finished it in seconds. He definitely deserved to become a. Anko and Ino were smirking. They knew that the boy would get an easy victory, and judging by the Hokage's satisfied look, his promotion was secured. Once Naruto had returned to the seats and sat down with his girls, it was time for Sasuke's fight. Problem was that the Uchiha still wasn't there, so Gaara won by walkover. This irritated Orochimaru, who was actually disguised as the Kazekage. His plans were ruined, and it was all because of Kakashi. He sneaked a look at Naruto. The boy had grown really strong and was also a big obstacle. He would have to improvise or else it would be over. Among the audience was a blonde, beautiful woman with big breasts. She was usually well known, but she had disguised herself as a 12-year-old flat-chested girl with red hair, glasses, and freckles. That woman's name was Tsunade, and she was very impressed by what she had seen. Minato and Kushina's son had acted as true with the way he had battled, and judging by the look on her former teacher's face, the boy could be sure to become one. Not to mention that he was kind of cute but too young for her. She usually avoided the village, but her curiosity over the son of the fourth Hokage intrigued her to come and watch, and so far she had been nothing but impressed. His teacher had to be a real genius for the blonde to be coming this far. Of course, Tsunade didn't know that Naruto, under the tutelage of Anko, had become a master in seducing women, and if he wanted her, then he could and would make her attracted to him, making her ignore the age difference. It was finally time for Sasuke's fight, but the boy was nowhere to be seen. Naruto cast a glance at his opponent, but Gaara showed more annoyance than satisfaction. This meant that he didn't have anything to do with the Uchiha's absence. Orochimaru tried to delay the fight, but Mei was getting restless and wanted it to continue, and Sarutobi had to agree with her. So Sasuke Uchiha was disqualified, much to everyone's annoyance. This meant that Gaara would advance without fighting and would be Naruto's next opponent. Gaara was not happy. He had been looking forward to the battle, but at least his next opponent was strong, maybe even more than the Uchiha. Most of the audience was glaring at Naruto, as if he was the reason their favorite couldn't fight. Sakura would have joined them, but the glares from two of her former classmates shut her up. They wouldn't let the pink-haired girl accuse Naruto for something that he hadn't done. Kurenai found herself taking the same side as Naruto's fan club and harem, which surprised her. The raven-haired older beauty had to admit though, she really admired Naruto for showing her such a professional and impressive fight. He would go far. Anko looked at her friend who was glancing at her blonde student and couldn't help but giggle a little. Seemed like her friend was also developing an interest in Naruto. The match continued to Kankuro and Shino, but the puppeteer declined as to not reveal his puppet's abilities beforehand. This left his sister Temari to defend their families and their village's honor. She just wasn't looking forward to her opponent. The blonde beauty from the desert believed that this guy wouldn't even try and this would be an easy victory. Boy, would she be surprised. It became a battle of the brains, and Shikamaru turned out to have the upper hand the whole time, but in the end Temari was declared the winner due to the fact that Shikamaru ran out of chakra. She had to admit though, he sure was smart. Now it was Naruto vs Gaara and Shino vs Temari, and that was the moment that Kakashi and Sasuke made their entrance. The Uchiha wasn't too happy about the fact that he had to wait until the next exam before he got another chance at promotion, and it was all Kakashi's fault. He looked at Naruto, who was standing ready to fight the opponent that he was supposed to fight, and gave him a look that told the blonde not to lose. "Naruto, if you don't become I won't forgive you." Sasuke added a friendly smile to his teammate. Even though he knew that it was a joke, Naruto nodded with a smile. He had no intention of losing. Besides, Gaara was stuck in the darkness and he was the only one who could get him out of there. The Budo, who had disguised himself as an Anbu, realized that now was the time to act, but before he could send the signal he was kicked into the wall behind him by Guy, who had arrived with Lee. Orochimaru realized that it was over and decided that it was time to escape, but Mei noticed this and used her lava release to burn the disguised sound quartet and stopping the snake in his tracks. Meanwhile, Tsunade had released her disguise and cut off Kabuto's nerves, leaving the spy immobile. Orochimaru wasn't defeated just yet. Using the summoning jutsu, he summoned Manda, the king of snakes. This was enough reason for the attack to start. Once Gaara saw the giant snake, he realized that it was time to attack and started to gather his sand, but Naruto wasn't late to follow and used his crystal release to crystallize Gaara's sand and his gourd, effectively cutting off the boy's most effective weapon. The youngest son of the Kazekage glared at his opponent. It seemed as if he had completely misjudged who was the strongest genin in the village. Once Anko saw that the Kazekage was actually Orochimaru, she didn't hesitate to attack, but was stopped by Kurenai. "Anko, do you actually think you can stand a chance against Orochimaru?" Even though she didn't like it, Kurenai was right. The snake girl wouldn't last even a minute. It would be better to deal with the other intruders. Anko looked at her students and was proud to see them completely dominating their opponents. Ino was hitting their vital parts with incredible accuracy, and Naruto had stopped his opponent from utilizing his main weapon. Even the shy Hinata showed no mercy as she struck down enemies so fast that it was hard to follow. Her strength probably came from Naruto. Orochimaru looked around. Everything was falling apart. First, Kimimaro became deadly sick, then Gaara and his sand were stopped by the Ninetales container, and since he was surrounded by two cages and his two old teammates Tsunade and Jiraiya, he had nowhere to run. He couldn't even get to Sasuke. Even Manda and his snakes were occupied by Gamabunta. Things were not looking good. "This is it, Orochimaru," the third said, "it's time for you to pay for your crimes." "We'll see about that, old man." Though the traitor didn't sound as confident as he usually did. The two stared at each other. Naruto could see the pain in his opponent's eyes, a pain he was all too familiar with. "Why aren't you attacking me? I cannot defend myself any longer." "Because I don't want to. You didn't ask to become A, and neither did I. You're two." "Yes, that's why I know what you're going through. Would you still refuse to fight me even if I hurt your friends?" "I don't have many friends, but I'll defend the few I have with everything I got, even if it means killing you." Gaara looked at the blonde. His determination was shining through, and it was all because of his friends. "If we become friends, I can make sure that you will never have to be alone again." The red-haired boy thought for a moment. Even though they were supposed to be enemies, he was willing to become friends. The thought of having a friend and never being alone again did sound tempting. And he could see that Naruto was dead serious. He decided to give it a chance since the pain of loneliness was getting nearly unbearable. "Fine, let's try it." He reached up his hand and Naruto didn't hesitate to shake it. Both boys smiled at each other and Gaara felt Shikaku losing his influence. The boy knew that he could finally start sleeping again. Once Naruto had freed the sand, the two boys worked together with Gamabunta and easily forced Manda into submission, which led the two boys into writing a contract with the snake. Of course, Manda would be waiting for the right moment when he could kill his contractors and avenge his defeat. The boys then started to take care of more enemies. The battle between Shino and Kankuro took place after all in the forest, but ended in a tie with Shino being poisoned and Kankuro being covered in bugs. Shikamaru was once again facing Temari, but since he had run out of chakra he didn't feel like fighting, not that he had wanted to anyway. The blonde girl was observing her opponent. He was definitely smarter than her, but she was stronger. It had been proven when she won due to her endurance. Despite this, she found herself fascinated by the boy. Even though he was lazy, he fascinated her. She was considered one of the smartest Kunoichi in the village, but he truly gave her a run for her money. The two of them could have really smart children. The desert flower blushed. Did she just think about having kids with the possibly laziest ninja ever? "So are you going to attack or what?" She looked up and shook her head. "No, I have more important things to do than hang around a guy who doesn't even seem to want to be a ninja." Temari then left to find another opponent who was actually worth fighting, though she was sure she would never forget that lazy guy. Shikamaru looked after the fleeing girl before sighing. She was so troublesome, though she was kind of cute. He blushed at the thought. What was he thinking about the enemy? Sasuke had already killed 10 enemies, but he was still feeling unsatisfied. He had failed to become A, and the so-called dead last had apparently won his match without getting a scratch. The black-haired boy could feel his jealousy growing inside of him. Naruto didn't deserve to get this far. He was supposed to spend the rest of his life struggling to catch up to the Uchiha. Sasuke decided to deal with Naruto once he got an opportunity. Hinata was feeling on top of the world as she and Ino struck down one enemy after another. Her admiration for Naruto had inspired her to try harder than ever, and she knew that she was going to try even harder once she had completely recovered. Ino wasn't doing worse than her raven-haired rival. Anko had taught her how to effectively use poison, and by striking her opponents with poisoned weapons, she was practically wiping the floor with the enemy. The beautiful blonde had decided that she would give up on Sasuke since he was nowhere near as nice as Naruto. The only thing that remained was to find out how she truly felt about the two boys. Despite being completely outmatched, Orochimaru decided to at least take the third with him, and he knew the right for that. The snake immediately leaped for Sarutobi and grabbed his left hand while making signs with the other. Twin Snake's mutual death jutsu. Two snakes came out of Orochimaru's sleeve and bit both men, injecting them with poison and causing both of them to fall down dead. The other three looked shocked at what had just transpired. Orochimaru had committed suicide and taking the third Hokage with him. Jiraiya stood there with a sad look. His teacher was no more. Mei feared that the villagers would probably find a way to blame this on Naruto and understood that the boy had to be taken to the hidden mist for his own protection. Tsunade could barely contain herself after what she had just witnessed and immediately went to the battlefield where she began beating enemy ninja to death. By nightfall every sound ninja was dead and every surviving from sand minus Gaara, who was protected by Naruto and who in turn was protected by both the Mizukage and the remaining Sannin, arrested. Hidden Leaf had been victorious, but at a high price. The funeral for the Hokage and all the fallen Leaf ninja brought the whole village, along with the Mizukage and her bodyguards. Naruto and Gaara were also there. Despite that, the rest of the village didn't want them there, but since they were protected by ninja of the highest authority, which included the Nin, two ninja, the Mizukage, and the two highest council members, they couldn't do anything. The same night there was a quiet dinner in the Hokage mansion between Naruto, Anko, Ino, Hinata, Kurenai, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Mei, and Sarutobi's former teammates. Mei finally decided to break the news about what was going to happen now. Listen, after everything that has happened, Naruto's life will be in danger as long as he stays here in the Hidden Leaf, which is why I will take him back with me to the Hidden Mist. Wait a minute. Ino exclaimed. Why would Naruto's life be in danger, and why do you have to take him with you? Because that the villagers are going to blame Naruto for losing the third Hokage as well, which means that they will be more hostile than ever, and since I'm an old friend of Kushina, Naruto's mother, I see it as my duty to protect him from such threats since the Leaf Council obviously failed. The two oldest at the table looked down in shame. And in order to help him restore his clan, I will become his wife. Everyone was shocked at the Mizukage's confession. Naruto, she said looking at the boy, since you are the son of my best friend and have proven yourself to be both a wonderful ninja and person, I'll be happy to become your wife and the mother of your children. Both Ino and Hinata immediately stood up as they realized that the older woman was completely serious. Then we'll come too. They said at the same time in a tone that showed that they knew exactly what they were doing. Ino herself was completely surprised at her decision. Well, Anko said with a smile, I have to admit that this could be interesting, so I'll come with you as well. Now Kurenai stood up. If Anko and Hinata think that highly of him, then I too will come along so that I can see for myself. Both Naruto and the elders could barely understand that several women were ready to abandon their village for a 12-year-old kid. Now it was Tsunade's turn to speak up. Well, with so many girls you'll need at least one who is good with medicals, so I guess I can become a part of this little family as well. Jiraiya couldn't believe the luck of that boy. He really didn't want to miss this. Well, as the boy's godfather I should get along as well so that I can train him. Mei wasn't late in understanding the real reason why he wanted to come along. If you try something perverted then I'll castrate you without sedation. She said this with a smile. The old man gulped. She definitely sounded dangerous. I understand, he said nervously. Naruto had a hard time understanding what had just happened. He was going to move to another village and start a family with two beautiful women. Well, one beautiful woman and one beautiful preteen girl. So he did the only thing he could think of at the moment. He fainted. Anko smiled at the unconscious boy. His new life was just about to begin, but first they had another task, to find a new Hokage. Thanks for watching my video, see you next time, till then sayonara.